What's up, guys? We have another great video for you today. Starting off, these are your top waiver wire pickups at the QB position for Week 12. Starting off, I have Bo Nix. Nix is now the QB7 overall for the season, and he gets a very favorable schedule for the stretch run. Nix has been slinging it, but he also has decent rushing upside as well. He's a perfect fit in Sean Payton's offense and can serve as a QB1 moving forward. I also like adding Jameis Winston. The Browns are a bad football team this year, but they are throwing the ball at a ridiculous pace. Winston has attempted at least 41 passes in each of his last three games, and he's also finished in the top 10 in two of those games. He's a boomer bust guy, but with the passing volume that he gets, he is a borderline QB1 moving forward. I also like Drake May. Look, this guy is going to be a superstar, and he's put up some good performances against tough defenses over the last four games. He has good rushing upside as well and can serve as a QB2 who is startable if you're dealing with injuries or buys. And finally, I have Russell Wilson. I think he's a decent add. He gets a solid stretch over the next 3 weeks, and he's playing good football overall this year. He's not a QB1 anymore, but he'll be another guy that can be a serviceable bye week fill in or injury fill in.
It's coming down to the nitty gritty in fantasy season. You probably only have 3-4 weeks left. This is who we are targeting at the wide receiver position coming up in week 12. MVS, baby. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I told you guys last week, pick him up if he's still available. Scoop him up. I know he's not getting many targets, but he is making those targets count. This past week, he had 2 catches for 87 yards and a TD. That was after the week prior having 3 catches and a touchdown. He should be seeing more targets because, like I said, who else are they going to throw it to? We got Devon Vele of the Denver Broncos. His last 2 games, he's had 4 catches in each of those games, and he's put up 106 total yards over those 2 games and a touchdown. So Vele, he's worth the roster spot. Coming down the stretch here, like I said, we need all the help we can get to make that playoff push. Let's go. We got Nick Westbrook Ikine of the Tennessee Titans. He's had 4 to 6 targets, which is pretty good, in 4 of his last 5 games. So especially if you're in a PPR format, keep an eye on Westbrook Ikine. And Kendrick Bourne of the Patriots. You want to talk about a roller coaster? I love roller coasters. This guy is the quintessential roller coaster, but hey, he's had been dealing with some injury problems. 2 weeks ago, he didn't even have any snaps on the field. And this week, he went for 70 yards and a touchdown. He's a good player to keep an eye on. I personally would pick him up, stash him on the bench, because he might be good down the line here. Especially, I know I've been hyping up the Patriots wide receivers these last couple of weeks with Bourne and Butte and Douglas. But hey, Drake May, he's looking pretty good. So all 3 of these guys, one of them's bound to just take off on the other 2.
Here's your waiver wire pickups at the running back position. First, Rico Dowdle, Dallas Cowboys. Believe it or not, he's still available in 27% of leagues. If you're struggling at the running back position, or if you just have a weak player, I would pick him up. Even on a terrible Cowboys team, he should not be available as the number 1 RB. Next, we have Jerome Ford of the Cleveland Browns. Chubb just is not the same player that he was, and Ford is explosive whenever he can get into open space, all right? He's had 9 touches or more the last 2 weeks and looks like his floor should be at least in that 10 touch range. Finally, we have Cam Akers, Minnesota Vikings. He has 10 touches in back-to-back games, and it looks like they're trying to pace Jones a little bit, so that is someone I would look to add because just on volume alone, Cam Akers is definitely startable during bye weeks or injuries.
Here are some tight ends to pick up for Week 12 in fantasy football. First off, Jonnu Smith is the priority pickup at tight end this week. Smith just posted 6 catches for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns in Week 11, and he is averaging 6.3 targets per game over his last 5 starts. Next, I like adding Zach Ertz. The 34-year-old is putting together a nice season with the Commanders, and in 3 of his past 5 games, he has scored over 10 fantasy points. He gets a favorable matchup against Dallas next week as well. And finally, if he's still available in your league, grab Hunter Henry. Henry is the Patriots' leading receiver on the year, and Drake May looks very promising at quarterback. I like Henry and the Patriots to finish out the year strong on offense.
Here are a couple players that are fantasy fool's gold, so don't fall for them. First up, Taysom Hill, quarterback slash tight end, New Orleans Saints. Every year he has these crazy blow up games, but it's way too unpredictable. He's just as likely to give you zero as a blow up. No, he's actually more likely to give you zero than these blow up games, and you can never trust him. 7 of 11 games this year, he's been under 5 points. Next, Noah Gray is a tight end on the Kansas City Chiefs. Most of his points came from 2 touchdowns, which is way too unpredictable, and he averages less than 3 targets a game. Finally, Curtis Samuel, wide receiver, Buffalo Bills. On that team, at best, he's the fifth option for catching passes, which you don't want the fifth. And he's been under 5 points all but this game and one other, so definitely avoid these fancy fool's gold.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
All right, my hot takes this week are going to be on the National League. First, we have the Dodgers. They should be getting a lot of their starting rotation back up, and they'll throw money at it. Plus, they'll have Shohei Ohtani pitching, so look for them to be the National League World Series favorite. But the team I have matching them pretty well is the Atlanta Braves. As long as all their players that were injured come back healthy, they should have a better pitching rotation than the Dodgers. Finally, hurts me to say this, but the Brewers are the playoff team that I see losing more of that magic from the Brewers as their GM went to the Mets and he brought that magic there. And as they farther and farther get away from him, I think he'll kind of hurt that great farm system that the Brewers have had. So look for them to probably fall out of the playoffs and start to struggle a little bit.
You want the hot takes? I got the hot takes. Listen, we're coming down the home stretch of the NFL season where wins are going to mean more and losses are going to hurt more. And I know the Buffalo Bills just beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But don't worry, Swifties. Chiefs Kingdom. The Chiefs are still the number one and the best team in the AFC. They're sitting at 9-1. I know they just lost to the Bills, who are sitting at 9-2. But hey, until they can get over them in the playoffs, the Chiefs are that team. Pittsburgh's sitting there 8-2. I don't trust Russell Wilson. The Chargers are sitting at 7-3. They're kind of fool's gold come playoff time, so they still got to prove themselves. Baltimore, who I thought was going to win the AFC, 7-4, and Houston, they're currently beating the Cowboys right now. I expect them to win and also be at 7-4. The 49ers are sitting in last place in the NFC. They're 5-5. They've lost 3 games, 1 to each team in their division, so it is not looking good. However, I still believe they will win the NFC West. And yes, I know I am a San Francisco 49ers homer.
My hot take for the week is that the Cowboys should hire John Gruden as their head coach next season. I know many will try to compare this to Mike McCarthy. Both were Super Bowl winners who were out of the league for a period of time, but Gruden is no McCarthy, and in his last 3 seasons with the Raiders, Gruden was 18-18, and the Raiders haven't smelled that level of success since. Gruden had Derek Carr playing the best football of his career, and imagine what he can do with a team with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Gruden is one of the all-time greats and would have the Cowboys immediately in playoff contention.
My hot take for the week is that NFL kickers should never be signed to long-term contracts. And my reasoning is that kickers are the most prone to getting the yips. A guy can be a serviceable kicker for years, but then he misses 4 or 5 kicks in a couple of weeks, and suddenly he can no longer kick the ball through the uprights. It doesn't make sense to invest money in a position where guys can transform into drains on the team overnight. We are seeing this happen in Cleveland and Cincinnati this season, and for every Justin Tucker, there are 10 Dustin Hopkins.
Okay, here's a poker hand I played 1-2 at Choctaw. Earn gun raised to $8. Five players call. I look down at 9-8 of clubs and I call from the big blind and check in the dark. So let's go to the flop. The flop is the ace of hearts, the nine of hearts, the eight of spades. Earn gun now bets 30 and only the cutoff calls. So I want to get a little tricky here and I call the 30 and check in the dark again. The turn is the three of spades. Now the earned gun bet $75 and the cutoff folds. I think it's time to raise because there is two flush draws and the board's getting a little more dicey. So I raise to $203. The earned gun thinks about it for a moment, but he mucks, showing an ace, and we scoop a very nice pot. Okay, still playing 1-2 at Choctaw. A player under gun plus two that had been very loose and crazy raised to $20, and two players called. I looked down at pocket queens from the button and I made it $72, and only the under gun plus two called. So we go to the flop. The ace of hearts, the queen of diamonds, the three of clubs. They check to me and I don't want to slow play this, so I see bet for $111 and they call. The turn is a two of diamonds. They check to me again, and now I want to put a little more pressure because I still think I have the nuts. So I raise to $250 and they call. The river is the five of spades. They go all in for $202. I know they didn't have pocket aces, so I'm confident with my set of queens. And so I snap call, and they show ace four offsuit for the runner straight. And they scooped and made a comment about how they can't be bullied. I just tap table, shake my head, and say nice hand. I don't think I could have played it any differently whenever they're playing ace four offsuit and they're not wanting it pushed off the hand. Here are a couple of players to add in fantasy basketball this week. First, Malik Beasley. He's a shooting guard, Detroit Pistons. He's available in 68% of leagues and has been player 83 the last 2 weeks. He's given you four three-pointers made a game, which is crazy amount of three-pointers, 17.8 points, 3.8 rebounds, two assists, and a steal. Next, we have Jared McCain, point guard and shooting guard on the Philadelphia 76ers. He's available in 53% of leagues, and he's been player 50 the last 2 weeks. He makes 3.3 three-pointers a game, 19.9 points, two rebounds, 3.3 assists, which is going up, and one steal. Remember, we like to look at the last 2 weeks because in basketball, the rotations change, and you shouldn't really be looking too much more than that in case a player starts losing minutes. Okay, thank you so much for watching to the end. If you haven't yet, please take a moment, hit that like, comment, subscribe. And if you do not know yet, on Saturdays we are dropping our start sits for the week. So check that out to make sure that you're watching, seeing the players you should be starting and sitting for fantasy football. And at 11 a.m. Central Time, we go live to kind of give you the best updates of what's going on for fantasy football. So check that out. We have our store. Go there, get some DGL merch, and have a great week.